In today's video, we're going to be upgrading the basic interior of our 2020 Jeep Compass by adding the Ainavi 11.5-inch QLED dual knob Android powered radio head unit. What's up YouTube, and how's it going today? As you saw in the intro for today's video, we're going to be upgrading the interior of this Jeep Compass. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and replace this 7-inch factory Uconnect system with an 11.5-inch Android powered system from Ainavi. This is actually not the first opportunity I've had to test and review a system from the Ainavi brand. About a month or maybe 2 months ago, I actually installed one of their units into my 2019 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. And if you haven't seen that video, make sure to click on the link right here to check out that video, because in that video, I actually went ahead and showed you guys the step-by-step process on how to install the unit, as well as showed you guys how it functioned and gave you guys my overall thoughts and opinions about the unit after testing it out for a bit. And to summarize my overall thoughts about that, I have to say that unit I installed definitely exceeded my expectations, and I was overly impressed by how it performed in the Jeep and how it looked installed on that dash. And after posting that video, Ainavi actually reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to review a second unit of theirs, which is why today we're installing this unit into this 2020 Jeep Compass. And I have to say, guys, I am really excited to get this unit installed in this vehicle, especially because we've had really good success with the unit installed in the Wrangler. And to tell you the truth, guys, I'm still running that unit in the Wrangler to this day, and I haven't had a single issue whatsoever. So can't wait to see how this one does in the Compass. So what we're going to do in today's video is, obviously, we're going to go ahead and show you guys how to install this unit, because we got to get this one out and get the new one installed. Once we got the new one installed, we're going to show you guys a little bit on how it functions. Then we're going to test it out a little bit and give you guys our overall thoughts and opinions. So with that outlined, let's go ahead and get into the first steps of the installation. The first step to the installation is to remove the trim panel for the factory head unit. To do that, you're going to take a pry tool, which they actually provide in the kit, and simply slide it under the bottom edge of the trim panel and simply go ahead and pop up the edge. And then work your way around, just going around. Once you get it, you should be able to do it with your hands. Next, you're going to take a T25 Torx screwdriver and remove the 4 screws that hold the head unit in place. Once you have those 4 screws removed, you're going to simply pull the head unit out and simply disconnect all the wiring harnesses from the back of the unit. Now that we've got the factory unit removed from the dash, we can now get into installing the new unit. But before we do that, let's go ahead and unbox this unit to see what it comes with. First item we're going to take a look at is, of course, the main screen. So this is an 11.5-inch QLED screen. Looks like we do have a little bezel on the inside, so the screen is actually not going to power the whole surface, but the screen inside measures to be 11.5 inches. It does have a screen protector on it. You can see that because of the bubbles and the marks. Basically, once we've got installed, we'll just pull off that film. We got 2 dials on the side, and I have to say the dials here have a nice textile clicking feel to them. So it's not free spinning. You really have the ability to adjust it to what you need to. When you turn this unit to the side, we've got a reset button here indicated by the R, and we've got another hole here indicated with an M, which makes me assume that that might be a microphone input or a built-in microphone. When we spin this unit around to the back side, we've got a pretty slimline setup. We've got our connection ports here for all the different wires that are going to go into the back of it. We've got this connection here, which is the connection for the main power harness. And we know that because there is a fuse located right underneath it. So it's really nice to see a fuse built into this. We've got our radio input here. We've got our GPS input there. We've got a cooling fan built into the back of it with its own wiring harness. And then on the back side, we've got a bunch of designed cooling ports here to help keep a lot of the internals cool. It looks like here we do have some information about the serial number and some details about what this unit is. To go with this unit, we've also got a trim replacement panel right here. This is designed to incorporate the screen onto the face, and then this is going to go into the dash. I have to say, this looks pretty clean. The plastic's high quality. It looks really factory-like. I can't wait to see how it fits into the vehicle. Yeah, definitely impressed by that. Then to go with those two units, we have a bunch of wires. The first wire we're going to talk about is the main power harness. So this is the connection that goes into the vehicle. And then this box here is what takes the information from the vehicle or from the radio and translates it into information that the vehicle can handle. So this is the main vehicle, main harness. And from this, we have a bunch of other things that will plug into it. So with the other wires, let's start from the left. The first wires we have here is an aftermarket and microphone and clip. This is basically an additional microphone that you can add to the system if needed. We are going to try the system without this because I am hoping that this system will work with the factory microphones in the vehicle. The next wires that we have are two USB wires. We have a 4-pin and a 6-pin. These are going to be additional items that you're going to use to transfer information into the new radio. Then we've got our FM, or I guess antenna radio connection. This is basically what works to transfer the factory antenna into the new system. Then we've got a GPS antenna for this system. Basically, this is something you can place in the vehicle or in the dash, and it comes with double-sided tape on the backside. We've then got our reverse control cable. This is utilized for the camera if you're using the aftermarket camera. And these two wires here are for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity for the Android Auto system and other features. So a very important cord there. We then got our auxiliary cord here. This cord has a few different things built into it. If you're using an aftermarket subsystem, this is what you're going to plug into. If you're using the aftermarket camera, you also might plug into that as well. Well, actually, no. If you're using the factory camera, you're going to utilize one of these to make that work. You also have your port for your microphone. So that's if you're going to use that microphone, you plug that into here. We've also got our power connection for the fan on the back of the screen. So important cable there. Next cable is the media hub one. So this is a cord that will give you the ability to use your factory media port and plug it into the radio. So that's a good, nice cord there. The next two cords we have here are for the aftermarket camera. So in the event that your vehicle does not have a camera built into it or it's broken, you can actually use this to get a reverse camera that will work with the system. So basically they've got the full cord here that you can run through the vehicle, and then this is going to be put on to the back of the vehicle. Then to finish this off, you've got a trim tool and your instruction manuals. So back to the installation, the next thing we need to do is actually go ahead and assemble the head unit so they can actually go ahead and install it into the vehicle. The first step for this is you're actually going to have to go ahead and remove the vents from the factory trim panel. To do that, you're going to take a T22 torch screwdriver and you're going to go ahead and undo the 2 screws that are located on the inside of the bottom of the vents. Once you have those removed, you're then going to go ahead and simply work your way around the edge, undoing the clips that hold the vent in place, and then you can simply go ahead and slide the vent off. Now that the vents are removed from the old trim panel, we can simply go ahead and reinstall these onto the new trim panel for the new radio. So that's this right here. The steps to do this is pretty much just the reverse of what you did to remove it. So very, very simple. One other part we also have to transfer from the old trim panel to the new one are actually the clips located on the back side of the trim panel that hold the trim panel onto the vehicle. So to do this, all you're going to do is simply go under there, pry them up, pop them off, and then simply clip them onto the new one. So let's go ahead and get those transferred over, as well as get the new vents installed onto this trim panel so that we can show you guys the last step of the assembly before we can actually go ahead and start putting this into the vehicle. Now that we have everything transferred over to the new trim panel, the last step of the assembly is to actually go ahead and attach the screen to the trim panel. To do this, on the back side of the screen, you're going to see 3 little tabs on each side. These are designed to slide into the openings on the front face of the trim panels right here. So there's 3 on each side. All you're going to do is take the screen, simply guide it up to the trim panel, have those tabs slide into the openings. Once they're in the openings, you're going to simply press down. And once you hear that clip, that means that this is now officially assembled. So now this is assembled, we can simply put this aside and we're going to start on attaching some of those wiring harnesses. Okay guys, so small change of plans. Instead of setting this unit aside and simply going ahead and connecting all the wiring harnesses to the vehicle and then connecting the unit to the vehicle, we're actually going to go ahead and connect the wiring harnesses to the unit and then connect everything to the vehicle at the same time. It's just going to be a little bit easier because there's more connections that happen on the back side of this unit. The first wiring harness we're going to start with is the main power harness right here. We're going to take this connection here, which is the black one, and we're going to plug that into the port at the top left located above the fuse. Just simply connect that in until you hear it click in. Then on this wiring harness, there's another connection that needs to be made, and that is this green one or white one right here with the 2 green wires coming out of it. This is going to connect to the corresponding white connection in the white ports. So it's going to be the top right on this one. Then we're going to take the next wiring harness, which is going to be the auxiliary port. This is going to plug in using this connection here and plugging into the largest white port, which is the bottom right. Simply connect that in place. Then on this, we're going to have to take this connection here, which is the fan power wire, and connect it to the wire coming out of the fan. Simply click that into place. Then you're going to connect the 2 auxiliary ports here, the aux in right and the aux in left, or out, left, no, in. Yeah, so in, and you're going to connect those to the main wiring harness, which is the aux R and the aux left. So just red to red, white to white. And then those 2 are connected. The next wiring harness we're going to connect is the reverse cable connection. This again, going to plug into the corresponding white connection, which is the top left in this case. And then you're going to take this yellow connection and connect it to the main wiring harness, which is labeled camera. Then the next wiring harness we're going to take is actually the factory radio antenna wire. This is going to plug into the back of the radio in the green port. Simply push that into place. The next wire we're going to connect is actually the GPS wire right here. This is a little tricky because it is a screw-in connection, and unfortunately the location is a little tough to get to. So all you're going to do is kind of push this onto it, and then using one finger, just kind of screw it on. It doesn't have to be super tight, just nice and snug. Then the next cord we're going to be adding is actually the 6-pin USB cord right here. This is going to, again, plug into the corresponding white port up at the top, which is the middle to left one, little middle to left top one. Oops, put it in the right way. And then the last cord is actually going to be this media port. This is actually going to be replacing the 4-pin USB port. So we're not going to use this USB port. Instead, we're going to use this because it's going to connect to the vehicle's media USB port. This, again, plugs into the corresponding white port. That is the final wire that we need to connect to the back. And now we can go ahead with try and connect this to the vehicle. That is all of the wiring harnesses that need to connect to the back of the radio. That means we are ready to go ahead and install this into the dash of the vehicle. To do that, we're going to simply go ahead and rest this on my leg right at the dash opening. And then we're going to start connecting some of the harnesses. The main one we're going to start with is, of course, the big black box, which is the main connection to the vehicle, which is this one here. You're going to simply guide this into the port. Once it's in, you simply close the connection and it should pull close and stay clipped. Then we're going to go ahead and connect the radio connection, which is going to connect to the white one here. Just simply connect that up. The yellow one, we are not going to be connecting anything to that. That is going to stay unconnected, so we can tuck that away. This connection right here is for the USB port. So we're going to take the connection for the USB port, which was that one we plugged in, and simply connect that together. It doesn't click in, which I don't like. So you're just going to simply rest that together. If you have an electrical tape, I would suggest connecting that to keep it connected. The only wire that we really need to run anywhere is actually the USB 6 connection. This is useful to have accessible in the event that you need to do an update through a USB stick or something. So all you're going to do is route this through the vehicle to the glove box. So just route that to the glove box. A little difficult to do, but should be able to get it in there. The rest of the cords are simply going to go inside the dash. So now we just simply slide this up, guide all of these wires into it, including the GPS, which you can stick up on the inside if you want it, or you can just place it within. Really doesn't matter that much. Just get all those wires in there, make sure nothing is pinched, and then simply go ahead and press it onto the dash. And it's in the dash. Overall, I have to say the installation of this unit was actually pretty straightforward and easy to do. If you are someone who's looking to purchase this unit and install it for yourself, you can either go ahead and follow the steps that I've shown in today's video, or you can also go ahead and follow the written instructions that they provided with this unit. Either way, you should be able to do it. And honestly, it isn't rocket science. All you're simply doing is taking the provided wiring harnesses that come with this unit and plugging them into the back of the corresponding plugs on this unit, and then simply connecting those to the vehicle and simply installing the unit. It's straightforward. Again, if you want to try and do it yourself, you should be able to do it. One thing I really like about these Ainavi units is that I've noticed they don't have an excess amount of wiring harnesses or boxes that are behind the unit, which is really nice to see because there are some units that I've installed in my 2019 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon that had an excess amount of wires and boxes, and it made it really difficult to fit everything into the dash behind the radio. Where this unit, it didn't have that problem, and it means that there's actually a lot of room behind this unit, which means the unit is going to have the breathability that it needs for the fan on the backside to help reduce this unit from overheating. So really like just that. It makes it so easy to get it onto the vehicle, where those other units, it was a disaster. You're just squeezing things, trying not to pinch things. This was super easy to do. Now that we do have this unit installed in the vehicle, the next thing we can do is simply go ahead and remove, see if I can get it, remove the screen protector, and then let's get this off. It's pretty tight here. Get the screen protector off, and then we can fire this unit up and see how it works. When you boot the system up for the first time, you're going to get the initial boot up sequence. This sequence is a longer sequence than what you typically would get when you are using your vehicle on a regular basis. That is because the system has a little bit of a memory ability where it maintains the last known page that is on when you turn off your vehicle. But when you first boot this up, it has to go through the entire loading process, which is this process right here. Once the system is loaded, it's going to get to this home page right here. Before I get into explaining some of the details on here, I first want to go ahead and simply turn off the vehicle to show you the quick boot up sequence. So as you can see, if your vehicle is being used, it's going to boot up very quickly to the home page just like that. On this page, we basically have a few widgets you can choose from. On this one right here, which is the speed one, you can actually click it, and it's going to take you to the Google Maps navigation. One thing to note about this section is it only works when you're on Wi-Fi. So if you're on your Bluetooth ability, you're not going to get all the information through the system. As you can see, it just popped up saying that right there. If we go back, the next one we have is Bluetooth. If we click that, it's going to take you to your Bluetooth area where you can connect your devices. Then you have your media section right here. That's going to take you to your media location, and whatever's playing will play. Then you've got your radio button where you click that, it's going to take you to the radio. On here, we've got our standard radio features where you can jump to different channels directly. You can press and hold to sync to the next one. You can also do presets in here and also make presets by pressing and holding them in those locations. When we come back to here, we have our widget app area where you can actually put widgets in this location for quick access. On the bottom here, we've got our app navigation section here where you click that, it brings you to the apps. Then we've got another Google Maps location here where you can click to go to the Google Maps. We've got our time. We've got file section where if you click that, it's going to show you what internal storage or what you have stored. This is where you can store photos, you can store music, you can do a bunch of different things in this section. Then you've got your Bluetooth music as well to jump back to that. On this side, you've got your volume controls. You also mute the button by pressing on and off. On this side, we've got our ability to jump to the next song by clicking next over. A few different things in those dials. What we're going to look into right now is if we click in the apps, we can just quickly look at some of the apps you have available. Look, you have Chrome. You can use Chrome. You can jump to radio, videos, Bluetooth. We got car settings, Bluetooth settings, file manager, Google Play Store, which because this is an Android app, you can actually add Android apps to this by downloading from the store. You have YouTube. If you swipe left, you've got a few more, Spotify, image scan, auxiliary in. So in the event you want to use in your auxiliary port, you can actually control what goes in there. You have car information, you have DSP, instructions, themes, Z-Link, which is actually the wireless Bluetooth, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. and then of course Google and even Netflix. But again, some of these apps like Netflix and Google only work when you have a Wi-Fi connectivity. You can't use them through Bluetooth. So a couple things I want to show you in this apps. First, let's talk about the car settings. So if you click on the car settings in here, you can see all your networks and areas. You can go to general and see a bunch of different features you can turn on and off. Display, you can change themes. You can have it on automatic, dark or night. Right now we're going to keep it on automatic. You can change the brightness. You also control sound, all the different levels of Bluetooth, media, all the different things you can change. Then you have system things where you can see wireless updates, local updates. This is all stuff to keep this system running as you want Android to stay up to date. And then in here, in the factory section, you actually have the ability to check out like some of the settings. This is an important section. So if for some reason you load this up and you're not seeing your vehicle show up, what you can do is click on this, then do the password, which surprisingly just 6 zeros, hit OK. And then in here, you can actually select a few different things to help configure this system to work with your vehicle, in particular, car settings. So in here, you want to make sure that your vehicle is set up. So we are using a high life system, so it tells you what you're using right now, and all of that looks correct. But if we want to double check or change, you want to click High World because that's the canvas thing that comes with this. Then you're going to find your vehicle brand. So in this one, we are looking for Jeep Chrysler. Then we're going to Compass. And then from in here, we want to click the vehicle that we're on. We are on a 2020, so we're going to click this one right here. We're going to hit OK, and that is going to update. So that's one little thing that you want to make sure that you are running. Then if we come back to the menu, the next thing that we're looking at is car information. In the car information, this is where you're going to find your car settings, which include a lot of the features you used to be able to change in the Uconnect. So a lot of this stuff is in here. Some of it is maybe not relevant to what you have, but there is information and stuff in here that might be useful for your vehicle. Car information, that just tells you like some general stuff. And air set, this is, if you click this, this takes you to your air controls. This is an important feature because if you have heated steering wheel or heated seats, this is where you're going to find it. But in here, you can actually change a bunch of stuff. By example, you can touch change it, but you can also just use the climate control located down below. So it works in configuration. You can also change it to auto. You can also do the heated steering wheels and stuff like that. If we go back, that is pretty much all we really want to explain to you here. One important thing we want to go ahead and do is show you is the Bluetooth connection. So once you're on this page, what you want to do is hit the search button up here. That is going to start the pairing. And then on your phone, you go to pair a new device. Find the device, which in this case is listed as CarBT. You want to pair them together, and then your device is going to connect. Once it connects, it's going to start up the Z-Link app, which is, again, the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto. Then it's going to connect, and it's going to, in my case, it's going to boot up Android Auto. On this screen, you can see whatever you have configured for your Android Auto. For my case, I have Waze, so Waze is up, and then I have my Spotify app right there. So this is very similar to all the other Android Auto platforms up there. You can see, clicking down here, you can change and see the menu. You can go back, you can exit, a lot of things you can do from there. If you want to go back to the home page and you don't want to hit the app to go back to the home page, you can actually scroll down and then hit home. And again, if you want to go back to the Z-Link, you can just do that. Couple features you might want to know about this system. If we open the doors, we get this icon that shows up. If we put it into reverse, let's see the reverse camera. So as soon as you put it in reverse, we get the camera. And on here, we have our lines. These lines are parking lines, and then those lines are your curve lines to indicate where your wheels are going. On the side here, you can also close this if you want to have full visibility. The last thing I want to show you guys is a little feature that I actually had to turn on, and I think it's very useful, and that is the floating AC button. So that is located right now up in this top corner. It's actually faded out right now, but if you click it, it opens to the AC button. This button is actually a floating button, which you can place anywhere on the screen. It does go dark when you're not using it, but it is an important feature to get to that screen. So right now I have it located right there. If I click it, it brings me to this screen, which gives me the ability to turn on the heated seats and the steering wheels. That's an important feature that a lot of you are going to need, especially because it's not located down in your AC climate control sections. To turn this feature on, you're actually going to go to your system here. You're going to go to car settings. Then you're going to go to factory. You're going to do the password, which is 6 zeros. Hit that. Then you're going to go to CAN related settings. In here, you're going to see a few different things that you could turn on. For example, display door information. That's the open on. Display air information. What we want to do is display or change display air control floating button. This will be set as closed on your system. You want to set it to open so that that button shows up. You can also do a display 360 button, which that's, I guess, if you have it. There's a few different things you can turn on and off, but that is one of the things I think is super important because it gives you the ability to move that button around and have it accessible for different situations. So I'm just going to leave it right there. So that is pretty much everything I have to show about this system. And we're back. It's been about 3 weeks since the last part of this video where we finished the installation of this unit and did a little walkthrough to show you its features and functionality. The reason it's been 3 weeks is because during the testing, which our original plan was to pause this video, do some testing, determine how this performs, find some of the things we like about it, find some of the things we dislike about it, and then come back to this video to wrap it up and give you our final thoughts. Fortunately, during the testing, we ran into some issues that required some troubleshooting. It took a little longer than anticipated. What happened is because this 2020 Jeep Compass is actually equipped with the cold weather package, which, if you're unfamiliar about that, is basically heated steering wheel, heated seats, and remote start. What's unique about the Compass is that when you add that option into the vehicle, you actually don't end up with any physical buttons, and the buttons for the heated steering wheel and the heated seats are actually in the factory Uconnect. During the testing, what I discovered is that with this unit, when you go into the climate control area, the heated steering wheel and heated seats buttons were there, but they didn't work. So when I would click them, it would do nothing. So we had an issue. We had to figure out, how are we going to get that fixed? Because that was an important feature of this vehicle, and it was something we didn't want to lose. So contacted their customer support, started working with them to find some solutions. The first thing they suggested was to go ahead and update the unit. To do that, what you had to do was connect it to Wi-Fi. You can either connect it to your home Wi-Fi, or for myself, what I did is I hotspotted to my phone and then connected this device to use the mobile data from my phone. Once you did that, you had to go to the car settings, and then in the car settings, you had to go and update the canvas. So the canvas is the little black box that's on the main power harness. This is a really important item because this item actually transfers all the information from this Android system to the vehicle and then vice versa. So the canvas box needed to be updated. So what we did is we went to the system settings here. We went to system. Then we clicked CAN APK update. This then does an automatic update and then updated the system. I then ran it again and it said, you're already up to date. Figured that would be the solution. Unfortunately, did not solve my issue. So then I went back to them one more time and they said, let's go ahead and do another update. The next update they said was you actually go to system and you scroll down to device info, click on device info, and then here you click 6 times on CAN info, and then it runs another update. It made no sense why I had a different update there, which the other system didn't know, but in the end, it did a double update. After doing that, the next thing I needed to do was go into factory. I put in the password, which is, in this car, is 6 zeros. Click that. And then from here, went into the car settings. And then in the car settings, I went ahead and clicked High World, because this is a High World canvas. Clicked High World, then went to Jeep/Chrysler, and Compass, and then went to number 5, which was a new one. I didn't have that before, but I clicked on that one. Once I did that, that should have worked, but unfortunately, it actually made my issues worse. What I discovered is once we are in that settings, that we started to see some other issues. For example, when we would turn the vehicle on, the language on the dash would be a different language. It would switch from English to the Spanish or to Chinese. It just would do that randomly. We also noticed that the reverse camera would not trigger. So when we throw it in reverse, it wouldn't work. And then we also noticed that the climate control on this would actually stop working as well. You'd still have the button to go to, so you could still get to the climate control, but on here, none of the buttons would work. So that was a new thing that I discovered. So I went back to their customer service or the support team, sent them all this information. I took images of the vehicle information. So I took images of this page here so that they had all that information. I went into car settings as well. There's another one here, car info, gave them that number there. And also on this page, I also did notice that it was -40, not the right temperature, which made no sense. I gave them all that information. They came back and said, look, you're up to date, but what we think is happening is a firmware update. So they sent me a link that I could download a file. I went ahead and put that file onto a USB stick that I brought this stick over, plugged it into the system, followed their instructions, and updated the firmware. It turns out that the firmware update was exactly what the canvas needed. So the canvas was out of date in terms of firmware, also software, but firmware was the big thing. And once I updated the firmware, everything else was perfect. So we had no issues with connectivity, the climate control worked, and you had the ability to turn the heated steering wheels and the heated seats on and off as well. So everything was fixed, the reverse camera, no more language things. So it seems that the issue had to do with the fact that the canvas was not up to date. It's great that it's now fixed. We're happy that the unit now works, but I do have to say from a customer or a business standpoint that, and I hope the brand is listening, that it's not really acceptable for a customer to have to do all of this to get the system to work. Look, I understand selecting the vehicle, that's fine, but doing the updates, it just doesn't make sense. This system should come fully up to date. It should have the most recent firmware up to date, the most recent software. It should be ready to go as soon as the customer puts it in. I have to say this because, look, I am testing the system out. I'm making this video. I also have experience with the Android system. So for me to do this wasn't a big deal. I understood it. I was able to go through. But for the average customer who buys this on Amazon, they're not going to go through that. If they install it and it's not working, they're going to go ahead and simply return it. They're not going to spend the time. So it's extremely important that they fix this. The thing needs to come perfectly up to date out of the box so that when we put it in, it's good to go. Other than that major issue that ended up taking 3 weeks to solve, I have to say we're pretty happy with this unit. It's very quick. It performs well. We haven't noticed any connection issues with the mobile connection to the phone. The phone calls are great. We've noticed, without the extra microphone on, the sound quality's fine. It does pick up a little bit more background noise, so possibly if that is an issue, you could easily just go plug that additional mic in because the mic does have that foam ball. Thing to tell you about that, something I discovered during testing is with this system, you can actually get the factory reverse guidelines. All you have to do is go in the system, do a little bit of configuring, and then you can get that back. We're really happy that's back because when we were using the reverse guidelines that come with this system, we noticed them a little off. They're a little different, and they actually led to us running up on a curb once. So it's nice to have the more accurate ones back. Not hard to do, just do a little bit of configurations. The next thing we really like about this system is, of course, the wireless connectivity. The fact that you have the ability to jump in your vehicle, turn it on, and then it automatically connects to your phone and brings up Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and then starts playing and starts showing the GPS is an amazing feature. This is something this is offered in a lot of new modern vehicles. So it's nice to finally have that in an older generation vehicle. But to speak of a little negative, we did notice that when you do have it connected to your device gets a little warmer. Mine's been connected this whole time, and it's starting to get a little warmer. It definitely gets warm if you're on the screen of it. Not a big deal, just something to note that it is getting warmer. Also, it uses your battery more. So I guess to send the signal, the battery's working a little harder. If you're doing quick drives, you're fine. You don't need to plug it in. If you're doing a longer drive, you probably want to plug your phone in so that it's charging while also transmitting the signal. Also, while charging, it will help keep it cooler. So something we noticed about that. A few other negatives, because we're already talking about them, are very minor things, but one has to do with Android Auto, and I think it's the same as CarPlay. If you go to it, what I noticed is that this screen, the resolution is really far out, and it makes it a little difficult to press some of the buttons that are located around the dials. So they're a little hard to get to. Also, in general, everything's just super small. We noticed when driving and having the GPS running that the screen is a little far back. So it's a little bit, you have to look a little more than you need to. I would have rather been a little closer so that it's a quick glance and you're able to see it. Again, not a big deal, but something to note. The next thing that's probably a negative that I should mention has to do with the fact that this screen has 2 dials on it. So in the Jeep Compass, the dials that you're adding on this, which I have to say function well, they have nice click, nice feel. They turn the screen off if you hold it down, turn it back on. But in a Jeep Compass, they're duplicates. So you end up with a volume here, a volume down below, and then 2 tuner dials. Not a big deal again, but something to note. Personally, for the Jeep Compass, I would have rather just a flat screen with no dials because you already have those dials. But I do understand why. It's because they're using this screen setup in other vehicles that need the dials. So I believe you can actually get this screen in for a Jeep Wrangler JK. Different housing, obviously, but same screen. And that one does need the dials. So they're kind of reusing parts and providing them in different systems, which I get it. But, something to note. You have 2 dials now. Yeah, I guess I don't really have anything else more to say. Again, good unit, but needs to be updated so that it comes perfectly out of the box. If you're interested in finding out more details about this or possibly picking one up for yourself, you can click on the link right here or the link in the description. And hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope that everyone has a good understanding of what the system do and what it offers. And if you're thinking about installing this unit for yourself, I hope today's video gave you the confidence and the knowledge to give it a shot. Because I have to say, this unit was pretty easy to install. It's pretty much a plug and play application. You just simply plug everything into the right ports, put it in the dash, and then fire it up. If you have any questions or comments about anything I've shown in today's video, feel free to comment below and I'll do the best to answer them. As usual, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Keep evolving, and we'll see you guys on the next video on the Evolved Jeeping channel.